This is Ian Pickus, and you're listening to WAMC's Congressional Corner. Our guest is Congressman Richard Neal, a Democrat from the Massachusetts 1st District. Congressman Neal, you met recently with Rishi Sunak, the British Prime Minister. What was the conversation? What was on the table?
Well, I thought that the conversation went very well. It was an opportunity for me to remind the Prime Minister of the significance of the Good Friday Agreement, of which America is a co-guarantor, and to point out that I thought that there had been a sense of some sliding backwards with two previous prime ministers on the issue of the Good Friday Agreement. And it was an opportunity for me to make some suggestions as to how to get the institutions of governance up and running. I was in Belfast with Bill Clinton and Tony Blair and Rishi Sunak and Boris Johnson and Bertie Ahern and Leo Varadkar to celebrate what was a remarkable achievement, much reflected in the dimension that America lent to the success of the Good Friday Agreement. 30 years ago, there were 30,000 British soldiers in an area the size of the state of Connecticut in the north of Ireland. And there were watchtowers. The policing was used by one tradition to keep the other tradition in line. And there were, I believe, 106 military installations in this very small area. Today, the border is gone. You travel back and forth from Belfast to Dublin without any impediment. You have an opportunity to engage the economics, the commercial opportunities that exist on the island. And I don't know anybody who would ever talk about going back to the bad old ways. However, there is an ongoing dispute. Sinn Féin has won the on-the-ground election. They've prevailed to establish what is known as the first minister in the governing system. And recently they had a very successful effort, what we call on-the-ground elections in localities across the north. So I think that the Democratic Unionist Party, they are now the second party in the north, and we're urging them to go back into government to get the executive, as it's known, up and running at Stormont, and feel very strongly that they need to honor the result of the election. And I thought that Prime Minister Sunak did a good job when he established what is known as the framework and indicated that the framework was non-negotiable. Now, that might sound like a technical or an insider issue, but he laid out the framework, suggesting that all parties had to accept the result of the election. So I had a chance to talk with him about it, and he indeed was very grateful for the role that America played as an honest broker. But I did point out that I thought it was time to elevate the discussions to the office of the British Prime Minister and the Irish Prime Minister to get those institutions up and running.
Now, this was all tied to the 25th anniversary of the Good Friday Agreement. Did you find that he was receptive to your suggestions?
He was. I had a chance to talk to him in Belfast, and I had a chance to talk to Tony Blair as well, saw Bertie Ahern, so all of the political parties, the DUP, Sinn Féin, SDLP, UUP, and the Alliance Party, you name it. I had a chance to talk to all of them. And I will also be eternally grateful for the fact that Queen's University granted me an honorary degree, an honorary doctorate for the role that I have played in the run-up to the Good Friday Agreement.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I took a long standing role in that, dating back to what were known as the hunger strikers when I was a member of the Springfield City Council, and I stayed with it through all of these years. And in the upbeat moment of the 25th anniversary, there was a lot of congratulations that took place. And I think that the success that we had with ending the violence now means that we have to decommission the hearts of those who are on either side of that conflict. So my guess is that the Prime Minister's reaction was favorable. I will have a chance, I think, in coming days to speak with the parties again, as I do. They're always welcome to my office in Washington or here. And I also had a chance this week to meet with Michelle O'Neill. She is the duly elected First Minister now. She is the leader of Sinn Féin in the North. And we want her constitutionally to be able to sit in government as the First Minister because of the election that she won.
Congressman Neal, let me switch to American domestic politics now. This is our first time talking since the debt ceiling agreement. You had a key role in that debate on the floor. What do you think of the agreement, and what do you think of the way that Speaker McCarthy and President Biden dealt with each other?
Well, I think it was pretty harsh at the beginning, and I think that the reality settled in that you had to raise the debt ceiling. And the American dollar is redeemed in international markets because of the faith that people have in the credit system, the creditworthiness of the United States. We pay our bills. And I thought the argument that was used at the beginning by Speaker McCarthy, in a sense, to extort from President Biden legislative agreements that he could not make happen on the floor of the House of Representatives, showed that he was using debt ceiling, again, in what I considered to be an uncharacteristic way. And as you noted, I did manage the Democratic position on the floor. I did take a position, negotiated along with the Democratic leader, Hakeem Jeffries, who did a great job on this. We took a very strong negotiating position, and we were going to defend Biden's position. And I think that for all the talk about this, that this is an agreement that we can all live with. I noted on the floor that Mick Jagger was right, that you don't get everything you want, but you might get what you need. And I think to get the full faith and credit of the United States reestablished so that we could go to debt markets, understanding the role that American treasuries play in terms of liquidity in international markets is essential. So I thought that the Biden administration, they sent 3 really good negotiators in, and we came out of it with a deal that, if not lovable, can be likable.
Speaker McCarthy is facing another revolt, it looks like, from his right flank of the House majority. Do you think that this exercise has doomed further bipartisanship possibilities in this Congress?
Well, I think the problem for Speaker McCarthy is he got himself into this. He made these concessions to a fringe group within the Republican caucus, and the result has been that they continue to make these demands of a speaker who has a majority of what looks like about 4 votes. And as you know, in opposition, the Democratic Party, we're pretty well united. And there was a concurrence here passed in the House of Representatives to raise the debt ceiling. It means there should not be any conceivable discussion of a government shutdown. And it does not mean that we should be talking about the debt ceiling for 2 more years. In fact, my belief is the debt ceiling issue should be eliminated. And I'd go so far as to say that the problem that the speaker has right now, it's the concessions he made. And if you make those concessions, my experience tells me that the negotiators that feel as though you conceded, they generally want more, not less, as you go forward. So the spending bills are coming up, and I can't imagine that Senator McConnell and Republicans in the Senate are going to ask for any cuts to defense spending. They're going to want more money for Ukraine. I favor continuing to sustain Ukraine. And I think for Speaker McCarthy to take a position that this new fringe is going to want of cutting aid to Ukraine, it's going to violate the spirit of what we did just a couple of weeks ago. And my understanding is that the Republicans on the House Ways and Means Committee are about to offer up another tax cut. And that's a direct violation after they helped to take America to the precipice of default. And Biden saved us from going over the edge.
That's your committee. Do you have an idea of the scope of that proposal? Are we talking about continuing the Trump tax cuts? What does it look like?
This goes beyond that. That's my understanding. I've been a bit reluctant to comment on something until I've seen the full text, but my understanding is that that document is likely to be published in the next few days. It's not a secret in Washington that this is about to happen. And my understanding, again, is that they intend to pay for it by subtracting from what it was that Biden accomplished on the climate front. I helped to write that legislation. There's $400 billion worth of tax credits for renewable energy. And we look at that. We look at the infrastructure initiative. We look at the rescue plan that was done. We look at the CHIPS program. These are historic pieces of legislation that have not received a lot of attention with broad swaths of the American people, largely because if you're not pumping up conflict 24 hours a day, these sorts of issues don't get a lot of attention.
Just one more thing in this segment. I want to go back to something you said a little while ago, which is to take the debt ceiling limit off the table completely. So you're in support of the idea to not have the debt limit and need to continually renew or raise that limit.
There used to be an act of good faith, Ian, and that was that the debt ceiling would not be used as a cudgel to embarrass the other side. Republicans voted for the coronavirus relief. Republicans, some of whom voted for the infrastructure bill. They voted for the CARES Act. They voted for the CHIPS Act. And now to turn around and say, when the bill comes due, that they're going to ask for cuts in initiatives that they happen not to agree with or they don't like, means that it's now being used as a weapon. And I just as soon see it fall by the wayside. And remember, when Bill Clinton left, we were looking at budget surpluses. They've had tax cuts in 2001, 2003, and 2017 that have added $10 trillion to the national debt. And it seems to me that that is always left out of the argument on their part. So I'm in favor of just abolishing the debt ceiling as a political cudgel.
Massachusetts Congressman Richard Neal is a Democrat from the 1st District. Congressman Neal, thank you for being with us. And when we come back the next time, I've got a lightning round for you.